Let me ask you something before we get into this. Have you ever made a decision that looked absolutely perfect on paper? The kind of decision that made total sense when you ran the numbers, when you looked at the spreadsheet, when you watched the YouTube videos about it. And then 6 months later you were sitting in your new house, in your new state, staring at your first utility bill in July, wondering how you got it so wrong. That is what is happening to a growing number of Californians right now. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But enough that a pattern has emerged, a pattern that nobody is talking about loudly enough, and that is exactly what this video is about. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people pack up and leave California. They leave because of the rent, the taxes, the traffic on the 405, and the general sense that the math of living in the Golden State just doesn't work anymore. And for a meaningful number of them, it genuinely works out. They buy a bigger house, they pay less in taxes, their monthly stress goes down, and they never look back. That story is real and it deserves to be told honestly. But there is another story. A quieter one. The one happening inside houses in Phoenix in August. The one happening on suburban streets in Nashville when the tornado sirens go off at 2 in the morning. The one happening in the minds of people who did the math but forgot to factor in the part that doesn't show up on Zillow. That is the story this video tells. Quick note before we dive in. This is not a video that tells you not to leave California. That is not the point. The point is that every state on this list has something powerful to offer, and every state on this list also has something serious that nobody mentioned in the comment section when they were telling you to go. So here are the 10 states where Californians are moving in record numbers, and quietly regretting it, in 2026. Let us get into it. 10. North Carolina. North Carolina has been growing faster than almost any state in the country. It added nearly 146,000 residents between July 2024 and July 2025 alone, Bay Legal PC, and a significant share of that growth is coming from people who left California chasing the dream of a more affordable life in the South. Charlotte. Raleigh. The Research Triangle. Jobs in tech and finance, lower housing costs, friendly suburbs, and a pace of life that felt like a genuine exhale after years of California intensity. Zillow shows Charlotte homes at around $390,000 and Raleigh around $446,000. Bay Legal PC compared to a California median hovering near $750,000. Those numbers look like a miracle. And then June arrives. The humidity in North Carolina is not something you understand until you are standing in it. California heat is dry. Your sweat evaporates, your body cools, and you survive. North Carolina humidity is a completely different physical experience. The air is thick and warm and wet in a way that makes outdoor life feel like something you have to earn rather than enjoy. Your hair behaves differently. Your skin feels different. Walking to the mailbox in August becomes something that requires a moment of psychological preparation that you did not sign up for. Then there are the insects. Mosquitoes in North Carolina are not casual. They are organized, aggressive, and apparently immune to everything Californians think of as bug spray. Californians who spent 30 years without window screens in their homes are suddenly understanding why every house in the South has them on every window. And here is the part nobody talks about until it is too late. Bureau of Labor Statistics data from December 2025 shows California's average private hourly earnings at $42.03. North Carolina pays meaningfully less. The math that made perfect sense in December, when you were comparing rent prices on your laptop in a California apartment, starts to feel very different in July when you are earning less money, sweating through your shirt at 9 in the morning, and Googling hurricane evacuation routes because a tropical storm just hit the coast. North Carolina is a genuinely beautiful state. The Blue Ridge Mountains deserve every photograph ever taken of them. But beauty does not fix the humidity, and it does not replace the paycheck you left behind. 9. Tennessee. Nashville has become one of the most aspirational destinations in the country, and Californians have been flooding in. The music, the food culture, the energy, the friendliness, and the number that seals every conversation. No state income tax. 0. On paper, Tennessee looks like a tax paradise and a lifestyle upgrade simultaneously. It is a compelling combination. And then you live there for a year. The city that used to be affordable is simply not that city anymore. Housing costs in Nashville have climbed sharply, and a home in a decent neighborhood now runs well over $400,000, a price that has roughly doubled in 5 years. Californians who moved specifically for the savings are watching those savings narrow in real time. But let us talk about the thing nobody mentions until the sirens go off. Tennessee gets tornadoes. Not the theoretical geological risk that Californians grew up calmly ignoring. Actual rotating columns of air that flatten entire neighborhoods with hours of warning, sometimes less. The first time a Californian hears a tornado siren at 2 in the morning, something changes in them permanently. It is a different relationship with nature than anything California prepares you for. The summers are hot and genuinely sticky in a way that coastal California simply is not. The winters are cold and gray in a way that makes you realize you were taking 65-degree January days completely for granted. And the cultural food landscape, which matters more than people admit before they move, is dramatically different. California's ability to offer you 7 different cuisines at 7 different price points within a 10-minute drive of wherever you are, that is not something you fully appreciate until it is gone. Nashville has legitimately great barbecue and a music scene that is the real deal. But Californians who miss the farm-to-fork diversity, the ramen, the pho, the Ethiopian, the Oaxacan, the Korean barbecue, they feel that absence in ways they did not anticipate. 8. Oregon. Oregon was supposed to be the easy move. Same coast. Same trees. Same general cultural and political sensibility. Portland was going to be San Francisco without the price tag. That was genuinely the pitch. And for a while, it worked. Then the rain started. And here's the thing about Oregon rain that you need to understand before you move there. It is not rain the way California thinks of rain. California rain falls for 2 days and the entire state acts like civilization is under threat. Oregon rain is a lifestyle. It starts in October and it does not stop until June. 8 to 9 months of gray skies, drizzle, and a soft persistent mist that gets into your bones, your clothes, and eventually, if you are not careful, your whole sense of self. Seasonal affective disorder is not a buzzword in Oregon. It is a clinical reality for thousands of people who moved there from sunnier climates and underestimated what happens to a human being when they go months without meaningful sunshine. Light therapy lamps are not luxury items in the Pacific Northwest. They are survival tools, sold alongside everything else you need to get through the winter. Portland went through a genuinely difficult period. Tent encampments, visible substance use on downtown streets, storefronts that were walkable neighborhoods and became something harder to navigate. Many Californians who moved there felt they had traded one set of urban challenges for a smaller, wetter version of the same conversation. The job market is thinner than California's. The average hourly wage is lower. The tech presence in Portland is real but limited compared to the Bay Area or Los Angeles. Californians who arrived without a remote job already locked in found themselves competing for fewer positions at lower pay. Oregon is genuinely beautiful in ways that photographs can't fully capture. But the sun is not optional. And for a lot of people, that turned out to be something they couldn't negotiate around. 7. Florida. Florida is the second most popular destination for Californians leaving the state. No state income tax. Beaches. Sunshine. Palm trees. It sounds like California without the price tag. It is not. The humidity in Florida is a different species entirely. California heat is dry. Your sweat evaporates. You cool down. You function. Florida heat is wet. You sweat, and it just stays there. Your body keeps trying to cool itself, and the atmosphere keeps refusing to cooperate. The summers are 6 months long, and the air in August feels like the inside of a sauna that also has opinions. Californians who complain about 85-degree days in the Central Valley are suddenly living in a place where 85 degrees is considered a cool front. Then there are the hurricanes. Californians understand earthquakes. An earthquake lasts 15 seconds, and then it is over and you tell the story at dinner. Hurricanes last days. You board up your windows. You evacuate your home. You drive somewhere else and wait to find out whether your house is still standing when you come back. And the homeowner's insurance reflects that reality in ways that genuinely surprise people. Florida's insurance market has been in crisis. Premiums have doubled and tripled. Some insurers have left the state entirely. The cheap house you bought for $300,000 can now cost $2,000 a month just to insure, and that number was not in the Zillow listing when you made the offer. California's average private hourly earnings are $42.03. Florida pays $35.10. So you bought a cheaper house, but you are earning significantly less, and you are paying dramatically more to insure it. The math that looked clean from a distance gets complicated quickly on the ground. And then there is the flatness. Californians grew up with mountains in their rearview mirror. The Sierra Nevada, the Santa Monica Mountains, the hills of Marin, the ridgelines of the Cascades to the north. Florida is flat in every direction to every horizon, and for people who didn't realize they depended on topography for a sense of place, the absence is disorienting in a way that is genuinely hard to explain until you experience it. Florida works for a lot of people. But the Californians who expected coastal California with lower taxes discovered that the savings get absorbed by insurance, the beaches come with hurricanes, and the sunshine comes with weather conditions that make the Golden State feel very golden in retrospect. 6. Colorado. Colorado was the darling destination for Californians during the pandemic. Denver, Boulder, Colorado Springs, mountains, outdoor lifestyle, legal recreational cannabis, progressive cities set against some of the most dramatic natural scenery in North America. It felt like Northern California at half the price. There is just one problem with that framing. Colorado is no longer half the price. The median home in Denver is now over $550,000. Boulder has climbed past $800,000. Colorado Springs has crossed $400,000. The Californians who arrived in 2019 or early 2020 got the deals. Everyone who arrived after 2021 is paying prices that are starting to feel uncomfortably familiar, the prices they thought they left behind. The altitude catches people completely off guard. Denver sits at 5,280 feet. For the first few weeks after moving there, the most common experience is headaches, shortness of breath, and a level of dehydration that no amount of water seems to fix. Exercise feels harder. Alcohol hits faster. And nobody, absolutely nobody, warns you about the nosebleeds. Colorado winters are not California winters. Snow is beautiful for approximately one Instagram story. After that, it is shoveling your driveway at 6 in the morning, scraping ice off your windshield in the dark, navigating black ice on roads that your California driving instincts are completely unprepared for, and watching your heating bill climb to numbers that people from San Diego or Long Beach have genuinely never seen. Because they have never needed to heat a house through a full month of single-digit temperatures. And here's the part that genuinely surprised a lot of Californians who moved to Colorado specifically to escape fire risk. The Marshall Fire in 2021 destroyed over 1,000 homes in Boulder County. Colorado's wildfire season is growing longer and more intense every year. The smoke and the evacuation orders followed people over the state line. Colorado is beautiful. The skiing is world-class. The hiking is extraordinary. But the affordable mountain paradise that people imagined is now just another expensive market with worse weather, thinner air, and fire seasons that arrived right behind the moving truck. 5. Idaho. Boise was going to be the promised land. Cheap homes, good schools, friendly people, mountain views, for seasons, and a cost of living that made California feel like it was actively scamming you. Between 2020 and 2023, Californians poured into Idaho at a pace that made Boise one of the fastest-rising housing markets in the country. And then the prices caught up to the demand that created them. The median home in Boise went from around $270,000 in 2019 to over $450,000 by 2024. Californians drove those prices up, and then started complaining about the prices they drove up. The locals noticed. Idaho's relationship with California transplants is complicated in a way that is not subtle and not improving quickly. "Don't California my Idaho" bumper stickers are not ironic. They are a genuine cultural statement about how communities feel when they watch their hometown become unaffordable to the people who grew up there. A feeling, ironically, that Californians understand better than almost anyone. Conversations at local businesses can turn cold the moment someone mentions where they moved from. For Californians used to a state where being from somewhere else is completely normal, where diversity is the baseline, the friction is genuinely jarring. Idaho's average private hourly earnings are $35.15 compared to California's $42.03. The winters in Idaho are serious. Boise averages more than 20 inches of snow per year. Temperatures drop well below zero. Californians who have never owned a snow shovel or a set of tire chains are learning winter survival skills that they previously only associated with survival movies. Idaho is a beautiful state with a lifestyle that genuinely suits people who want open space, outdoor recreation, and a western rural pace. But for the Californians who moved based on a Zillow listing and a YouTube video about Boise, the reality of cold winters, cultural friction, and prices that are no longer a bargain has turned a dream into something considerably more complicated. 4. Washington. Washington was the logical move. Same coast. Same time zone. Seattle had tech jobs, coffee culture, progressive politics, and views of mountains and water that rivaled anything in the Bay Area. It was going to be California's northern twin. And in many ways, it is, including the parts people were trying to escape. Seattle's cost of living has climbed to the point where the savings over California are minimal. The median home in the Seattle metro area is now over $700,000. That is not a discount. That is California pricing with Washington weather. And Washington weather is the thing that quietly breaks people who move there for all the right reasons. Seattle averages over 150 cloudy days per year. The rain does not pour dramatically. It mists. It drizzles. It creates a low, persistent gray ceiling that settles in October and does not lift until sometime around the 4th of July if the year is being generous. Californians who move to Seattle in August fall in love instantly. The summers are legitimately spectacular. 75 degrees, blue skies, mountains visible in every direction, daylight that stretches past 9 o'clock at night. It is one of the most beautiful places in North America during those months. Then September ends and the gray arrives, and it does not leave for 8 months. Seasonal affective disorder is so common in the Pacific Northwest that doctors diagnose it with a familiarity that unsettles people who have never experienced the condition. Light therapy lamps are sold in grocery stores. Vitamin D is not a supplement. It is infrastructure. Washington has no state income tax, which is the headline that brings people in. But the sales tax exceeds 10% in many areas. Property taxes are climbing. The total picture often works out to something very close to what Californians were paying before they left. Same coast, similar urban challenges, similar prices, and significantly less sun. 3. Arizona. Arizona is the third most popular destination for Californians leaving the state, with over 52,000 making the move in a single year. Phoenix and Tucson are the draws. Cheaper housing, lower taxes, desert sunsets that are genuinely extraordinary, and a proximity to California that makes the move feel manageable. And then summer arrives. Phoenix averages over 100 days per year above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not a typo or an exaggeration. More than 100 days where the temperature exceeds 100 degrees. In June, July, and August, the daily high regularly reaches 110, sometimes 115, occasionally pushing 120. The inside of a parked car becomes a genuine health hazard. Your steering wheel burns your hands. Walking from the parking lot to the grocery store entrance is an activity that requires planning. Californians who complained about 85-degree days in the Inland Empire are suddenly living in a place where 85 degrees is considered a mild, comfortable morning. The water situation in Arizona is not a future concern. It is a present one. The Colorado River, which supplies a massive portion of Arizona's water, has been in structural crisis for years. Lake Mead has dropped to levels that trigger mandatory allocation cuts to Arizona. Residential construction continues in a desert state that is actively running short of the one resource that makes desert life viable. For Californians who grew up surrounded by oak trees, wild grass, redwood forests, and the smell of the Pacific, the relentless brown of the Arizona landscape can become something that wears on you in ways you didn't anticipate during those first breathtaking sunsets. Arizona's average hourly earnings are $35.10, significantly below California's $42.03. And then there are the scorpions. Bark scorpions are common throughout the Phoenix metro area. They are venomous. They glow under ultraviolet light. Checking your shoes with a black light before putting them on in the morning is a genuine, practical, daily routine that real people follow in Arizona. Californians whose most significant wildlife concern was a coyote in the neighborhood are now sleeping with an awareness they never anticipated. Arizona is warm, close to California, and genuinely affordable relative to the coast. Those three things explain why people move. The heat, the water crisis, and the wildlife explain why some of them wish they had thought harder about it. 2. Nevada. Nevada is the #1 destination for Californians on a per capita basis. 226 Californians per 10,000 residents move to Nevada every year, making it by far the largest net recipient of Californians in the country. The logic is hard to argue with. Las Vegas is 4 hours from Los Angeles. Reno is 3.5 hours from Sacramento. No income tax. Cheaper housing. Same desert climate. Close enough to visit California on a long weekend. It sounds like the obvious move. Then the paycheck arrives. Bureau of Labor Statistics data from late 2025 shows California's average private hourly wage at $42.03. Nevada's average is $32.57. That is nearly a $10 per hour difference. For a full-time worker, that is roughly $20,000 less per year. The house is cheaper, but so is the income. And when you run that math honestly, not optimistically, honestly, the savings are often smaller than the real estate agent or the YouTube comment section suggested they would be. Las Vegas is an entertainment city built for tourists. Living there full-time is a fundamentally different experience from visiting it. The Strip loses its novelty. The neighborhoods away from it are sprawling suburbs with limited character, limited walkability, and limited of almost everything that defines a city's cultural identity. For Californians who had access to independent film, live theater, farmers markets with actual local farms, neighborhood restaurants with real chefs, and museums that weren't built to entertain people between gambling sessions, the adjustment is significant and real. The heat in Las Vegas rivals or exceeds Phoenix. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 110 degrees. The surrounding landscape is brown and flat and dry in every direction. The nearest ocean is a 5-hour drive. The nearest real mountain with actual trees is over an hour away. Losing the support network of family, lifelong friends, and the familiar rhythms of community creates an emotional void that no house with a lower mortgage payment can fill. Nevada saves Californians money on taxes. It costs them in wages, in culture, in climate, and in the slow, quiet realization that proximity to California is not the same thing as living in California. 1. Texas. #1 on this list is the state that more Californians move to than any other. Texas is the top destination for departing Californians, with 14.1% of the state's total outbound search interest, and in raw numbers, 77,000 Californians relocated to Texas in a single year. That is the population of a small city. And a growing number of them are discovering that the Lone Star State is not the promised land the internet said it was. The pitch for Texas is genuinely powerful. No state income tax. Houses the size of California apartments for half the price. A booming economy. A business-friendly environment. Face. Freedom. Barbecue. On paper, Texas wins almost every comparison. And then you step outside in July. Texas heat is not California heat. California heat is dry, and your body knows how to handle it. Texas heat is humid. The air is thick and wet, and it sits on you like a warm blanket you can't remove. Houston in August is 100 degrees with 90% humidity, a combination that turns the most basic outdoor activities into genuine endurance events. Dallas is not much better. Even Austin, which has spent a decade marketing itself as the California of Texas, reaches triple digits for weeks at a stretch with heat index readings that make your weather app feel like a warning label rather than a forecast. Now let's talk about the number that nobody mentions until the first property tax bill arrives, because this is the one that consistently shocks Californians most. Texas has no state income tax, that is true. But the property tax rate in Texas averages around 1.8%. On a $400,000 house, that is $7,200 per year. California's effective property tax rate is around 0.7%. Do that math carefully, and what you discover is that the no-income tax savings get substantially eaten by property taxes that are more than double California's rate. For many families, the total tax burden ends up being roughly equivalent. They moved 2,000 miles to pay it in a different arrangement. The power grid is a concern that Californians didn't have on their radar when they made the decision. The February 2021 winter storm knocked out power for millions of Texans for days during freezing temperatures. People died. The grid has been worked on since then, but it remains independent from the national grid and structurally vulnerable to extreme weather events. Californians who dealt with rolling blackouts during California heat waves are now in a state where the entire grid has demonstrated its ability to fail during a cold snap. The landscape of California is difficult to replicate anywhere on Earth. The Pacific Ocean, the Sierra Nevada, the redwood forests, wine country, the Mojave. The diversity of terrain within driving distance of any major California city is something that people don't appreciate until they are looking out at flat Texas horizon in every direction, understanding for the first time that the nearest mountain that qualifies as a mountain is an 8-hour drive away. The Gulf of Mexico is warm and brown and nothing like the Pacific in temperature, clarity, or feel. Many Californians take the Mediterranean climate for granted until they face their first Texas summer or their first Texas ice storm, and discover that extreme seasons fundamentally limit their daily routines in ways that a lower mortgage payment cannot compensate for. 77,000 Californians move to Texas every year. A growing number of them are realizing, quietly, that lower rent does not replace everything they left behind. The house is bigger. The taxes are different. The barbecue is genuinely better. But the beach is worse. The heat is unbearable for months. The grid has vulnerabilities. And California, the state they told everyone they were thrilled to be leaving, is 24 hours away on a highway, and somehow further than that in ways they can't fully explain. Here is the honest truth that ties all 10 of these states together, and that this entire video has been building toward. Leaving California is not a mistake. Staying in California is not always the right answer. The people who make the best moves, and there are many of them, are the ones who went in with clear eyes. They researched the weather in July, not just December. They ran the full wage comparison, not just the rent comparison. They understood that a support network is a financial asset, not just an emotional one. They knew what they were trading before they packed the truck. A UC Berkeley, California Policy Lab study found that Californians who move are, on average, 48% more likely to own a home 7 years later, which is a real and meaningful improvement in financial position. The moves work. But they work best for the people who understood the trade-offs before they made them, not after. Every state on this list has something real and valuable to offer. Every state on this list also has something that nobody mentioned in the comment section when they told you to get out. Leaving can be the right call. Just make sure you know what you are walking into before you decide what you are walking away from. This is Discover the Nation. If this gave you something real to think about, drop your city in the comments. Whether you stayed, whether you left, or whether you left and came back. Subscribe because we cover every angle of this story, and there is a lot more to come. See you in the next one.